This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Watergate break-in that led to the downfall of President Nixon. That scandal was well documented by two Washington Post journalists, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. WRAL's Ken Smith reports on the impact Watergate had on journalism and the parallels to the current January 6th hearings.
When the gavel came down on the U.S. Senate Watergate Committee hearings in 1973, it was the culmination of what is often referred to as the greatest act of investigative journalism in U.S. history.
Yes, Watergate is an example of government corruption.
UNC journalism professor emeritus and former newspaperman Farrell Guillory says the work of Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein changed the news gathering business.
Young reporters were much more willing and eager to scrutinize government, to hold powerful people to account.
Guillory says, though, that accountability didn't just happen in a Washington Post newsroom or on network television.
I was aware of listening devices.
He says it took Congress, the FBI, and the courts also doing their job to help connect the dots.
Who knew that 50 years later, some of the phrases, some of the language, some of the activities, some of the issues would be part of our public discourse.
Maury Clark is with the Poynter Institute that specializes in journalism training and education. He points to the similarities between the Watergate proceedings and the January 6th Select Committee hearings.
You can kind of hear the echoes, those of us who are old enough. But what did the president know and when did he know it?
Unlike 50 years ago, the business of news gathering has changed. Fewer resources, more avenues for information, and a concerted campaign to disparage the press. But journalists and scholars alike remain hopeful.
What role and what do we have to do to make sure that we combat that disinformation?
All of us journalists have to tell the truth as best we can discover it. That journalism involves the day-to-day pursuit of truth.
I see many, many individuals, I see many institutions that are determined to stand up against efforts to undercut democratic life.
50 years later, the lessons learned from the Watergate coverage continue to influence journalism today. Ken Smith, WRAL News.
It is harder than ever to combat disinformation. They weren't up against social media as we are. Well, the Senate Watergate Committee was chaired by North Carolina Senator Sam Ervin. Again, tonight's January 6th hearing begins at 8 o'clock right here on WRAL.